MoneyFit Live webinar. My name is Todd Christensen, Education Manager at MoneyFit and author of Everyday Money for Everyday People. Today's topic, I'm excited about it. It's the first time we've done this. Stop punching holes in your money bucket. Sounds interesting. Hopefully you'll find it both educational, helpful, and enjoyable. We're talking about spending habits that drain your wallet. Okay, so let's get into the principle. You have something you want to do with your money. You want to grow something beautiful. You want to set goals to create something alive in your life that's going to require money, that was going to require finances and the proper management of those finances. It's rewarding, it's helpful, it's life-sustaining, these financial goals, whatever they are. You got to have goals, short and long term. What do you need? What do you want to do in life that's going to require more than what you can just bring in with a monthly paycheck or a regular paycheck? This is like a gardener planting something that they want to nourish and nurture and grow. You're going to need the money. You're going to have to draw money from the well. Your well, most people, that would include your salary, your paycheck. You get money, you take that money, and you use it, and you pour it on your goal, whatever it is. You're saving money for something that you want to do in the future that's going to require money. That's what you do with money. It's like the water in a bucket. You grab your bucket, and you have to place it where it's needed most. In a lot of cases, much of that paycheck needs to go to paying bills. Unfortunately, for 60 to 80% of American workers, that's all it goes for. They have let themselves get into so many monthly bills and subscription services and everything else, and car loans and home loans, that the entire paycheck goes just to covering bills. Nothing left over for those long-term goals. Problem is, many of those buckets have what we call just holes in them. Things that we're spending a few dollars here, a few dollars there on without even thinking about it. And, it's just a few drops. Don't worry, I still have enough left over. And by the time you're going here and you're dropping water here and you're watering this, you go to that garden, you get to your garden, and you've punched so many holes in your budget, in your paycheck. Money is dripping all over the place that there's nothing left for those long-term goals. So you're draining your bucket in little drips at a time, and you look around and you can see drops of water where you've dropped water. It's moist, it's a little wet here, a little mud there. You don't even remember what you spent the money on. That's the principle that we're dealing with today, because if we've punched so many holes in our bucket that we can't get it to the long-term gardening of our, preparing for our long-term goals, then our goals will wither and die on the vine. There's not a whole lot we can do to help achieve those goals if we are using our money and spending it elsewhere, letting it drip without much thought. So let's go over some of the examples of what these money bucket draining or holes would look like. Some of them are not going to surprise you. Some are pretty obvious. And I'm not here to say that, hey, these are not important to you, should not be important. I'm not going to say get rid of all these holes. What I will say is minimize them. If they are not as high priority as your other goals, your long-term goals, then minimize them. Find ways, alternatives, and because we're going to go over what alternatives to that look like. So, for example, if you play a few cards in a weekly lottery, if you do it every week, what's that equivalent to? That is the same thing as flying once a year, round trip from coast to coast. You're trying to win the lifestyle of the rich and famous, which is just not going to happen. I mean, yeah, one person out of millions wins. That's not going to happen to you. Please, you're going to lose your money. You're never going to see a penny of it back. Whereas if you would take that same amount and instead putting it in a savings account, that would fund a round-trip ticket just about anywhere within the continental U.S. Not a bad deal. How about your monthly television subscription services, your cable bill or your satellite bill? How much are you spending on that? Well, on average, if you were to reroute that somewhere else, what could you do with it? Well, you could fly from New York down to Orlando. You could then spend 3 nights at a hotel in Orlando enjoying the park and a nice hotel. That's 3 nights. And that's at the average bill. There are some people who have, if you add the special movie channels and the sports packages and all these other things, you could easily, once a year, spend a week at going to Disney World or Universal or SeaWorld or any of the other parks down there. What I'm saying is, if you're tired of never having a nice vacation, which is more important, your daily supply of 300 channels of nothing to watch, or actually saving the money to go and enjoy yourself? How about detailing your car? Do you detail your car regularly? You know it's not cheap. Some people do it every week. Some people do it twice a month. Some people do it every month. Some people do it less often. But let's say you just had your vehicle detailed once a month. What's that equivalent to? Well, instead, if you did your own car wash, washed your own car and vacuumed your own car and shined your own car, and spent that money instead, put it in a savings account, you could quite likely fly to and from New York to Paris and back every year. Every year. That's not a bad deal. Okay, now we're getting personal. For a lot of people don't like this idea. There's a reason why some people call this Javanomics, because they talk about, or the latte factor, because this is such a common one. People who will spend money every morning, every weekday morning on their way to work and go get their special caffeinated drinks. Now, I remember talking about this in a class that people who had filed for bankruptcy had to attend, and I mentioned this. Look, if you're spending all this money on coffee every morning, you could be doing this instead. And one of the ladies in the class raised her hand. She was very nice. She said, look, we know in our household, she said, my husband and I know that I don't need much of anything. I just need my daily coffee. And that's my release. And I said, look, as long as it's in your budget, it's your priority, great, enjoy it. Anyway, what is the equivalent of if you're buying your daily coffee at a gourmet shop every morning, what's that equivalent to over a year's period? Well, what can you do from New York? Where can you go? Well, you can go down to Rio and enjoy 7 nights at a hotel, having fun down there before you come back to New York. That's the power. That's the cost of a daily latte or a daily ultra mega grande super uber whatever. It's just about priorities. Enjoy it, but compare it to what you could be doing otherwise, and some people might find other things that they would rather be doing. How about your monthly phone bill? Now, phones have become a staple of life, but if you've got to have the most expensive cell phone plan, and you've got to have a new phone that's a new i25 or whatever the newest phone is that they seem to release every 6 months now, and you finance that over 24 months, and all of a sudden your cell phone bill has gone from something that is fairly reasonable to something you can barely afford. What does that equate to? A monthly phone bill can equate to, from New York, heading all the way to Hawaii, 2 people and heading back, you'd be there for 8 days. How about eating out every day? Eating out for lunch every day. Fast food, some people just assume that's what we're going to do. What are the options? You've got to eat lunch, right? We don't even think that we can go back to our days of being a student and take a bag lunch, take leftovers from the night before or from 2 nights before, eat well, eat affordably. Well, instead of eating out 5 days a week for lunch for one person, you can take that same amount of money, head down to somewhere on the Florida coast, jump on a ship for 7 days, enjoy yourself on a nice Caribbean cruise before heading back. And that's for 2 people. You could have, that's a nice 7-day cruise for 2 people before you head back home. Just something to think about. If you say, okay, well, I need to eat, but could you take that same money and put it toward a little more longer term goal that's just as important or even more important? People who smoke know how expensive that can be. It's the equivalent, if you're smoking a pack a day, it's basically the equivalent of this huge vacation cruise heading from somewhere in Denmark up north of Great Britain down to the Azores, I believe that is, or the Canary Islands. I think that's Azores. 15-day cruise across the Atlantic. Okay. Now that may not appeal to some people. Some people don't like cruises, but I'm just telling you, when you think about how much money you're spending on cigarettes, just per year, you could go on a 2-week cruise and that includes all the food for 2 weeks, that includes all the entertainment for 2 weeks, that includes everything. All right, what about going out to a movie every week? Going out for entertainment on the weekends. A lot of people will either go to a movie and they'll get popcorn and hot dogs and candy and drinks and the whole shebang, or they'll go out with friends and go to a bar here, or do this activity over there, and easily plop down a pretty good chunk of their paycheck every weekend. What's that equivalent to? Well, going out for a movie and getting some popcorn and a few other things, it's the equivalent to having your dinner delivered 3 to 4 times a week, every week, for the entire year. I mean, we look at that weekend as a release from stress because we can't do anything. We have to work all day. We get home. Now we have to make dinner. And then we just want to release that stress on the weekend. Whereas you could take that same amount of money, not even generate the stress because you're having dinner delivered and it's usually a lot healthier than what sometimes people make. And then you don't have all the stress to have to release on the weekend, and you can spend it doing other things that are more important to you, whatever that might be. Okay, then you've got people who vape. This is come along in the last decade or so, presented as an alternative to smoking, as we are not surprised, not necessarily any healthier. But is it more expensive? Originally, it was presented as something more affordable. The problem is when you find a flavor apparently that you really like, you can go through those vials in a hurry. Smoking, having to replace those vials weekly and more often, what's that equivalent to? Well, that's like every 7 years buying a nice car, brand new SUV. Look at the car you're driving now. You say, hey, that's 20 years old and it's barely moving. You could have a brand new SUV, small SUV, granted, every 7 years with the same amount of money you're spending on vaping. So just to consider your priorities. That may not be a big deal to you. Obviously, health should be, but where your money goes is just an example of what you can do instead. So what do? Plug, refill, minimize. Recognize what is it that you're doing that is going to drip of money from your paycheck and not get it toward your long-term goals, that's plugging it. Refilling it, look for other opportunities. Besides saving money, you can also look at side gigs, or what are called side hustles, things you can do to make a little extra money on the side, delivering food or doing ride sharing or whatever it might be, freelancing. You can make some extra money and get to your goals even faster. And then minimize those. I'm not saying get rid of all your drains, plug every single hole completely, but look at the ones that you really are not your top priority, and you wonder, why am I even spending money on this? That's not even close to as important as what my other goals are. If you found something of benefit that in this webinar, please click the like button in YouTube and then subscribe to our channel so we can let you know of upcoming webinars. Also, it helps YouTube identify good content that should be shared with others. So please do consider subscribing. We appreciate it. If you would like a certificate of completion, you can go to moneyfit.org/live. Click there, go there and put your name in how you want it on your certificate. Put your email address where you want it sent. Choose the Money Bucket webinar from December 2020, and you're going to enter in your passcode 20DRAINS, 20 DRAINS, no spaces, no dashes, no dots, no capital letters, 20 DRAINS. Your certificate will be in your inbox. Once you submit that, it will be in your inbox within about a minute or less. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, or if you would have any comments or feedback, or if you would like to discuss anything of importance to you financially that relates to this topic or other topics that we have done on our webinars, please do give me a call. There's my phone number. There's my email address. I look forward to hearing from you. That's why we're here as a nonprofit. Thanks again for joining me, and have yourself a great day.